Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our accounts payable webinar part 2. Right, I'm just going to turn the camera on so you can just see us for a minute. So this is the team here. What we're going to do is I'm going to put the presentation on, slide back on again. So we're going to do a little bit of a presentation and a demonstration. So you won't see us, but I just thought it'd be nice to see the faces of who you're watching today or listening to today. So here we go. Right, so Accounts Payable 2, Part 2. Today we're going to continue our exploration of options available to you through the digital transformation journey that you might be on, and particularly in reference to accounts payable. My name is Graham Foxwell, and I have over 30 years in this industry. I know I don't look like it, but over 30 years in this industry. And I serve here as the product marketing lead here at Kyocera UK for ICT and content services, few other bits and pieces. And I'm joined here today by my esteemed colleagues, as you can see in the picture here, Simon Godfrey and Bob Mitten, and they will introduce themselves when they come and do their bit. As previously mentioned in the first webinar, Kyocera Document Solutions UK excels in a number of different fields, including things like managed services, cloud provision, collaboration, UC, security, infrastructure, networking, hardware, and of course content services that we're talking about today. And our comprehensive expertise positions us as the ideal partner, we believe, for the connected workplace. And we are committed to creating or modifying business processes that foster a culture and experience that aligns with the evolving business needs of a company like yours. So what does today look like? So this session, we're hoping will be about 30 minutes or more, depending on questions. We will answer questions at the end. So if you look at the top of your screen, you'll see a Q&A section at the top there. If you could put any questions that you may have as we go through this in there, and we will answer those at the end, if that's okay. And to let you know that we are recording this and we will be publishing this online afterwards. So thank you for joining us today, and I'll now pass you over to my colleague Simon.
Cheers, Graham. Thanks very much indeed. Good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. For those of you that weren't here for our first webinar, my name is Simon Godfrey, and I head up content services, the team here at Kyocera. And similarly to Graham, I have 24 years plus of experience in business process. Now, the content services team at Kyocera are here to help organisations that are relying on manual paper processes, storage of documents in a secure and a compliant manner, and customers who just want to convert archives of paper into digital documents. There are still lots of those out there. In our last webinar, I'm going to run through a few slides before my colleague Bob provides you all with a short demonstration of our software. Now, last time we looked at how businesses typically receive and process invoices. We're now going to show you how we can help take that bit from the capture piece through to a more informed way of how we can process that document through your business in terms of approvals and validation. So once we've done that, we're going to go on to how we can look at basically taking that information and securing it away to manage access and things like remote working and giving you a full audit and document retention policy. And in our final webinar, we're going to look at how we can maximize the investment on this technology to deliver a fast return on your investment initially, and how we can expand this technology into other areas of your organization should you wish to in the future. And finally, when we do our final webinar in May, we're going to look at how this also has an impact on Gen Z and Alpha as they come into the workplace. And there'll be more information on the dates for the webinar series at the end of this presentation. So let's look at that next stage of the process after we've captured that invoice and brought it into the system, how we can take that through approval and validation. Now, as I said, what we're going to cover in these following slides is what we typically see. There are many processes in here that you may or may not have adopted within your business. But in a lot of instances, we hear that this is just the way we've always done things, and we didn't know that there was another option. And that's fine. And hopefully by the end of these webinars, you'll see what the art of the possible is. Last time we showed you how we could potentially cut data entry times by capturing that invoice from the inbox, bringing it into our system, and basically stripping all the information off the page with our AI and machine learning capture tool. And today what we're going to do is look at how we can help you process that electronic document. Remember, we haven't printed any of this. And the POs and GRNs and delivery notes that you have within the system that we're going to basically match the data against. How are you then going to get that invoice approved because you don't have paper documents that someone can physically sign off? And then lastly, how we're going to add this information into our finance system, our ERP, if we haven't physically inputted the invoice data. So let's have a look at the art of the possible. As I said in the last webinar, in a lot of instances, accounts payable is still a very manual driven and paper laden process, and it takes time. And if we're working this way, then perhaps we are taking that paper invoice once we've manually keyed in all the header, footer and line item information, again, without making a simple mistake. Remember, we're human. And now what we're going to do is match that against a PO and some kind of delivery confirmation. Now, some of that information could also be on another paper record, perhaps a delivery note from a supplier. But the PO could be in our ERP, or it could be another piece of paper. Putting it simple, there could be a number of different combinations of paper or software lookups for each invoice, depending on how we work as an organisation. And again, it all takes valuable time to do so. Every minute we spend searching on pages and systems for information is time that we could be doing something more productive that actually makes money for our business. Every page that we print has associated costs. There's paper, there's toner, there's electricity. All of these are negative impacts on our business's bottom line, as well as our environment. We also need to validate that we have the supplier set up. Now, if you've been doing this AP job for a long period of time, I'm sure you've gotten to know who your regular suppliers are. But what if you're new to the role? What if it's a new supplier? It slows down the process. What about duplicated entries? What happens if an invoice is recorded twice by mistake? That's not ideal if we're talking about it's not ideal if we're talking about a small invoice, but what happens if it's a large amount? And that could be disastrous consequences for a business's cash flow. Now, let's say we've done our checks, the PO matches the invoices and we have the delivery note. The supplier is one we work with regularly. And we know that this is the only invoice that we received. So we're happy for this to move on to our FD for their approval because it's an invoice for £20,000. So it's over the £5,000 threshold that someone else can sign off. What do? Well, they're out of the office for the rest of the week, so we can just leave it on the desk. Remember when we did the webinar last time, we talked about how secure it is for leaving a piece of paper on a desk for them to sign when they get back. It never gets lost. Nobody can ever tamper with that. But in this instance, it needs this order to be signed off ASAP because the project that it relates to requires it to be approved so that we can complete the work for a customer. We can't let them down. They're our biggest customer. And this could delay the project, meaning we can't invoice it this month. So we'll be waiting longer to get paid. It's fine because we can scan all the documents and email them to the FD for their approval. Is there everything here that we need? No, PO's missing. That's in the ERP. But what we can do is we can print that off now and then we can scan that to the pack so that they've got everything when we send it over. It's more printing, more time, more energy, but you get the idea. It's not ideal. So if we wait for them to come back into the office or they have to respond to your email, you're relying on us not needing if it's an email, it's not needing a physical signature. But what about a rubber stamp or something like that for us to push it through? So we have to wait for them to come back in. And that takes even more time. And is this the only person that this needs to go to? What happens if it needs to be approved by the FD and then go on to the MD? We have to do the same thing over and over and over again. All of this takes time, energy, and paper. So my colleague Bob is now going to show you a quick demo of one of our solutions. In this session, Bob's going to show you how we can take that electronic information that we captured last time. We'll do some validation. He's going to show you how we can do three-way match without the need for any paper documents. He'll validate the supplier, and if they're new to us, he'll show us how we can quickly interact with the supplier to get them on board into our finance system. He's going to run a duplicate check to make sure that we don't pay a massive invoice twice. And then he'll show us how we can get that invoice approved regardless of who's in the chain or where they are. And lastly, he will pull all the GL codes through so we can feed the right information to our ERP before storing it away so that it's easily searchable. It's got to sound good, yeah? So over to you, Bob.
Hi, my name is Bob Metton. I won't admit to the number of years I've been in this business of BPM and workflow. It just upsets me now. Okay, so as Simon said, we've spoken in the last webinar about capturing the documents. We mentioned intelligent indexing. You can see there's coloured ribbons next to these documents, and it means that there is a certain amount of confidence as to intelligent index and capturing the information automatically. Very quickly, I'm just going to click on store just so we can remember what that step looks like. You can see it's captured all the relevant information from the document. So I'll click on store. Automatically goes through to the second invoice. Again, captured all that information automatically, so we don't need to key it in. Don't have to worry about the manual keying errors. Click on store. That's 2 of our invoices stored away automatically. Okay. So the first thing, if we go into tasks, I'm signed in as Peggy, working in the accounts department, and you can see that 2 of these documents have actually gone through. They've gone through straight to completion. Now on the way there, some of the things that have been done, we've checked for the name of the supplier to make sure that it's actually relating to the supplier list from our ERP system, make sure it's a valid supplier. We've done some calculations on the values on the documents. And if we double click on one of these, you'll see that there's what's called a document link. Now, if the person who's processing this needs to see the information that relates to this, like the delivery note and the PO, instead of going in and searching for it automatically, they can simply click on the link. It will go off and find the purchase order that we've generated for that particular invoice. Check the information, make sure it's okay, and then go back to process the invoice, all without leaving that one desktop screen. Right, tasks. Okay. So double click on the invoice again. View it in the right hand window, and down here we can decide on the operations that we need to carry out in the task. This is fully customizable to the customer requirements, so I'll talk about your processes when we come and talk to you, understand how you work currently and fit that in with the information that we've got in this task. So the user can actually take it through to completion. So we know the values are correct. It works against the delivery note. It works against the purchase order. All of those checks have been done in the background. It will also do a check for duplicates. So if an invoice has accidentally been scanned or stored twice, it will flag it up for a user to tell them to check. So we can say we can enter the gross amounts for the invoice and modify that if that's required. If I go across to the side, we can also say part of this invoice may need to go to a different cost center. So I'm going to say finance, and we can also put in their percentages to depend on which cost center needs to take that particular amount of the value. And that can automatically assign an approver at the next stage. If there's a question on it, I can also say, I need this checked, and send it on and assign it to another of my colleagues so they can go and check the invoice. If there's a problem and I need to query it with the supplier, I can put it onto hold. So simply select a date, put it on hold, and then that will flag up a task for me when I need to next process that. I've even got the chance to terminate the invoice so that if there's a particular problem with it, I can terminate the process, and even send an email to the supplier to say, here's a copy of the invoice, got a problem with it, add that into the information in the comments fields and get them to sort out the problem with the invoice so we can process it properly. Okay, So I'm just going to click confirm. And to my second one, yes, everything's okay with this one. Again, click on confirm. You'll see now that the document's actually gone through to prepare booking records. So in here, I can again get a final view on the document before we finish processing. You will see, I know someone's going to enjoy me doing this. If I zoom in a little bit, you'll see the steps that Peggy has taken. So Peggy Jenkins, when she did it, what she did, that's applied as a stamp. This is part of the audit trail. We've got a full audit trail behind the documents. We know every step of the workflow as it goes through the business, but this is a nice visible way of seeing that Peggy has actually done something on this document. This is quite a useful little tool because what we can do, we can very easily use a stamp for the less technically able users or remote users who may be in a coffee shop somewhere, get this delivered to their mobile device. They can simply click on stamp and simply click on the stamp, add a reason, and then go back to our coffee. So even a remote user can go in, approve an invoice, and carry on enjoying their coffee or playing golf or whatever their particular sin is. Okay, so that one's now processed. We've had a second assignment on it. We've checked all the values. That has now gone into the final step of the process, which is preparing the captured data from our invoices ready to be fed into the ERP system, which would normally be run on a scheduler on either a daily or an hourly basis. Okay, so that's the steps. We've looked at approvals. We've looked at stamps. We've looked at the tasks to allow us to do this. And again, as I say, they're fully customizable for you. And all with documents that are fully secure, stored away in a cabinet, easily searchable. And also, one click, we can search for additional documents that relate to them without going in there and wasting our time doing additional searches. Okay, and that's it for me. Thank you, Graham.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Bob. So I guess what we've done with the capture we showed you in our first webinar series, together with the workflow that we've just shown you today, we've shown you a bit more of the art of the possible. We've shown you how we can potentially speed up that initial process of capturing and inputting data and then going through an approval and validation piece before we post into our ERP. Again, we're doing all this to increase productivity in the department. Because if invoice data is being extracted by the latest in AI and machine learning, less mistakes are made, improving data accuracy. Remember, we are human, so we can make mistakes, they do happen. But if we were going back to what we were saying about productivity, by utilizing applications like this, you could potentially grow your organization without having to increase headcount and the resources you already have. And let's not forget the environmental impacts. We all need to do our bit. So if we can use less paper, less electricity, less toner, and create less waste, then that's got to be a good thing, hasn't it? So on this sheet that you can see, we've got speed, productivity, accuracy, resource, environment. And if you look at the first letter of all those, what could your business do with all that extra spare time? How much more margin could your business achieve if your staff had some more spare time? Now, I'm going to wrap up here, but I want to thank you all for joining us again on this second series. And if you want to catch up on the first one, it's going to be on our YouTube page, and this one will be up there shortly as well. Now, the next session is going to be on Wednesday, the 24th of April. We hope you can join us for that one. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the benefits of having this data sat in a secure archive that manages access, helps with remote working, and gives you a full audit process and document retention policies on it as well. So we will see you then. And I think we're going to put the camera back on so that we can go through any questions that have come through while we've been running through the slides.
Right. Okay. Have we had any questions come through so far?
We've had a few come in. The first one is you talked about workflow as part of the demonstration. How long does it typically take to set up your system in account payable?
It depends on the process that you have in the organisation. Part of the consultation will be sit down, whiteboard, coffee, and understand your requirement and try and fit the DocuWare workflow to your particular requirement. So it could be anything from half an hour to a couple of days, depending on the process.
Fair enough. And there's another question here on the ERP side of things. We've got a customer here with the ERP is SAP.
Okay.
Can your system work with that?
Yes, it can. Obviously, being a German company, it does integrate rather well with SAP.
We touched on this on the last webinar series, that the system that we're talking about today is a system called DocuWare, and it's got hundreds of integrations. So whether that be finance or HR or CRM, contract management tools, we can pretty much integrate with a lot of your products. So the ability to grow this product out into other departments within your organization is substantial. Any more?
No, that's it on that.
Okay.
And in case you're wondering, that there is a mic here as well. That strange voice that came in just now. There's a mic over there, but he's got a face for radio. So, you know.
We all.
But thank you very much for your time today. If you do have any more questions, please feel free to contact us by emailing us or get in contact with us online through LinkedIn, whatever way you'd like to get in contact with us. We are going to have the next two webinars coming up over the following weeks. But thank you again for joining us.
Cheers, guys.